开了你的机器吗 ？Okay, so good evening, everyone. Yes, you're right. We're ready.
Okay,
You're
test.
going to have to let the layman, Paul, be co-host so he can do the Dharma request. Does that make sense? So I think you should see Paul there and make him co-host so he can.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. So now he can unmute
阿弥陀佛，
himself.
法师。
Amitofo. So now you can do the Dharma request.
OK
Anytime you're ready. 好，我们现在要请法，大家在你的 chat box 里面可以看到那个请法的字头，就像这样子一样的。
请法文。
对，然后你就一起跟着我们，可以请佛菩萨、三宝来加持，然后大家可以一起来诚心的学习佛法。好。
恭请大德僧听，为此法会及一切众生，请转妙法轮，教导我们如何了生脱死，离苦得乐，速证无生。The Sangha with great virtue out of compassion for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma will to teach us how to leave suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo sadanto sucedoye alahadi samya sambuddhoje.
Namo satano sucedoye halahati samyao sambuddhosye.
Together. 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. All Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Venerable Master, all Dharma Masters and good and wise friends online, Amitabha, welcome to our evening Sutra lecture. We're very happy to have you. And we will begin by reciting Amitabha Buddha's name to also invoke the presence of Amitabha Buddha. 各位诸佛菩萨、上人、各位法师、各位三知识、线上的佛友，阿弥陀佛。我们先开始会来念佛我们请三宝来，也可以请阿弥陀佛的慈悲，我们也可以请出来我们心里的阿弥陀佛。
Okay, very good.
OK，要打木鱼喽。好。南无阿弥陀佛，南无阿弥陀佛，南无阿弥陀佛。
好，刚才那个金传法师说，请示自己的阿弥陀佛，要怎么样请法，也怎么样把它请出来？很简单，就是注意听，注意听法，注意要唱的时候就注意要一起唱。就这样子就可以了，就是要专心就对了。
So a moment ago, there was a comment about how we want to invite out our own Amitabha Buddha in our heart. And how do we do this? Well, when we are listening to the sutra, we just listen with attention. And if we are reciting, we pay attention with you could say, a focused mind. And that's how we invite out our own Amitabha Buddha inside.
好，OK 好像刚才没有讲，今天是7月30号，
对，
今天是7月30号，我们在伯克利这边来继续大家一起研究佛说无量寿经。那我们以前就是我们讲过就是48大愿，我们现在讲到第6，上一次就是讲到第6，我们今天要讲到第7。
So last time we were talking about the 48 great vows of Amitabha Buddha, and we got to vow number 6. So today we're going to start from vow number 7 in the sutra text.
我想我们还是一样的一起来复习。我们从第1到第6，然后从第7，然后再开始我们第7念到第10这样子。
So we can start from
第1开始好了。
We start reciting from number 1, first vow of Amitabha Buddha. And then we keep going from there.
Yeah.
So you should find the text on your chat box. There should be a text that says, yeah.
可以了吗？
可不可以看你的？我这个节不在，放中间。好。
好，我们这是从第1大愿开始，就等于我们在复习一样。
Okay, so we're starting on page 30, starting with number 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
好，我们开始。1，受我得佛，国有地狱、恶鬼、畜生者，不取正觉。2，受我得佛，国中人天。寿终之后，
对不起。
复更三恶道者，不取正觉。3，受我得佛，国中人天，不习真经色者，不取正觉。4，受我得佛，国中人天，彩色不同，形色不同，有好丑者，不取正觉。5，受我得佛，国中人天，不习世所命，下至之百千亿那由他，诸劫世者，不取正觉。6，受我得佛，国中人天，不得天眼，下至见百千亿那由他，诸佛国者，不取正觉。7，受我得佛，国中人天，不得天耳，下至闻百千亿那由他，诸佛所说，不许受持者，不取正觉。8，受我得佛，国中人天，不得见他心智，下至知百千亿那由他，诸佛国中众生心念者，不取正觉。9，受我得佛，国中人天，不得神足以依念情，下至不能超过百千亿那由他诸佛国者，不取正觉。10，受我得佛，国中人天，肉起想念贪计生者，不取正觉。好，到这里英文。
So we'll read the English now. Start on page 31, number 1. We'll read humans and devas rather than just devas. So 1, when I become a Buddha, if there are the realms of the hells, hungry ghosts, or animals in my land, I will not realize perfect awakening. 2. When I become a Buddha, if the humans and devas in my land fall into the 3 paths of misery after the end of their lives, I will not realize perfect awakening. 3. When I become a Buddha, if the humans and devas in my land are not all the color of pure gold, I will not realize perfect awakening. 4. When I become a Buddha, if the humans and devas in my land look different in any way, either beautiful or ugly, I will not realize perfect awakening. 5. When I become a Buddha, if the humans and devas in my land do not know their own past lives, remembering all the events extending back at least hundreds of thousands of millions of nayutas of eons, I will not realize perfect awakening. 6. When I become a Buddha, if the humans and devas in my land do not possess celestial vision, seeing at least hundreds of thousands of millions of nayutas of Buddha lands, I will not realize perfect awakening. 7. When I become a Buddha, if the humans and devas in my land do not possess celestial hearing, able to listen, accept, and retain the teachings of at least thousands of millions of nayutas of Buddhas, I will not realize perfect awakening. When I become a Buddha, if the humans and devas in my land do not possess the wisdom to see into the minds of others, knowing the thoughts of living beings in at least hundreds of thousands of millions of nayutas of Buddha lands, I will not realize perfect awakening. When I become a Buddha, if the humans and devas in my land do not possess the spiritual power of travel, passing over at least hundreds of thousands of millions of nayutas of Buddha lands in the span of a single thought, I will not realize perfect awakening. 10. When I become a Buddha, if the devas and humans and devas in my land have thoughts of attachment to their bodies, I will not realize perfect awakening.
好，我们今天的第7就是讲天耳通。那前面这个就是6通之一。那前面我们讲过宿命通第5、第6天眼天眼通，第6天眼通我们讲过了。今天我们讲天耳通。
So today we'll begin with vow number 7, which talks about this celestial hearing, the kind of spiritual power of having this, you could say, we use clairvoyance for, the kind of ability to see things that most people can't see. There's maybe clairaudience, I think is another word, for when our ears are able to hear things that other people can't hear. So this is another spiritual power within the Buddhist tradition.
所以这个第7的，就是他发的大愿，就是每一个人去到极乐世界的人都有天耳通，都能够听到听闻到百千亿哪有他诸佛他们所都在说法的，在说法，而且不只是听到，而且都要能够受持。所以有这样子的发愿。
So the 7th vow talks about the spiritual power of hearing, and those living beings who go to Amitabha Buddhist Pure Land will have this amazing capacity to hear the Dharma, and it says hundreds of thousands of millions of nayutas of teachings. Right? Let me pick the next slide. You have Buddhas, their teachings of all these Buddhas. And not just hear it, they're able to accept and retain these teachings. So it's not just the ability to hear, they're also able to you could say, retain in memory, but then probably also begin to embody.
所以这一个天耳通在佛说这个大乘菩萨藏正法经里面第10，他这个第10就是在讲禅定波罗蜜品，然后他说这个菩萨他得到天耳通的时候，他能够听到十方无量世界人或者非人，他 的一些声音。
So in the Sutra, the Buddha speaks of the Mahayana Bodhisattva Treasury Proper Dharma Sutra. In chapter 10, it talks about the bodhisattvas who perfect the paramita of, you could say, concentration or dhyana or samadhi. And in this chapter, it says those bodhisattvas are able to realize this celestial hearing, and they're able to hear the, you could say, all throughout the universe, the living beings in the 10 directions throughout the universe, both humans and non-humans. They're able to hear this.
对，这个就是包括天呐、就是天上的那些声音，还有龙，龙声，还有夜叉声、钱达婆声、阿修罗声、紧那罗声、罗诃罗声，还有一些圣人的声，还有声闻缘觉的声、菩萨声、佛声都可以听得到。
So this bodhisattva is able to not just hear humans, but they can hear the dragons, the yakshas, which are some kind of, you could say, fierce demon, the Gandharvas, the Asuras, some other spiritual beings were listed, all the way to the heavens and the Shravakas, the Pracheka Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, and the Buddhas. The Bodhisattva is able to hear all these beings.
所以他不只是听到就是上面的一些，他可以还听到地底下地狱的声，就是一些罪业声，还有旁声，旁声就是一些像四声啊，就是还有动物声，这些都是，还有阎摩罗界声，乃至非常细微边际声，像一些蝴蝶啊、蜜蜂啊、蚊虫声，这些的声音他都可以听得到。
So not just hearing into the kind of celestial realms and the spiritual realms, this bodhisattva can also listen to they say the realms of suffering below. For instance, the hells, the realms of the animals. Those little creatures like mosquitoes, butterflies, small flies. I think maybe also the hungry ghost realms. It's able to hear all of these different realms.
而且他们都可以了解到，他们所发出的这个声音，还的一些善呐，他声音是好的或者是不好的，他都可以了解，甚至于这个谩骂声，恶骂声，这个都可以了解到。
So this bodhisattva not just can hear these sounds, but he can also, or she can also distinguish. Some of these sounds are wholesome. They lead out of suffering. Some of these sounds are unwholesome or create suffering. It's also to hear the sounds of people scolding or yelling at each other. Even in these little realms of, like, say, the butterflies and the mosquitoes, their harsh, angry sounds. He's able to discern all of these different kinds of sounds.
所以在佛陀时代，当然有这一些的神通的也是蛮多。那今天晚上来跟大家讲一个呼纳奇尊者的这个故事，因为这个呼纳奇，他其实像我们在唱香赞的由来，这个而且我们中文班的。BBM 中文班，我们也有讲过这个故事。我想大概我不知道你还记得，我们中文班也有讲过这个呼纳奇的一段故事。
So, quite a few beings during the time of the Buddha had this ability to have like kind of spiritual hearing, and so there's a story about a person named Hunachi Zunza. Venerable Hunachi. Maybe somebody online can give me the Sanskrit of Hunachi. And he is related to the praise that we chant in the beginning of our ceremonies, the incense praise. And I told this story before during our Chinese class here at Berkeley Buddhist Monastery.
他这个是出在这个咸宜经第8卷，第8卷一个护那齐品，护那齐延品里面的一个故事。这个故事蛮长的，而且我觉得非常好，因为他这个是给我们来，因为他是佛弟子，可以给我们有很多地方可以学习的地方。
So this comes from the sutra called the Sagely and the Foolish, and it's from the 8th roll. And this chapter is actually titled Hunachi, this person's name. So you can find it yourself. The story is quite long, but it's a very good story, and there's many teachings in it that we can learn from.
他这个就是佛，这个也是算佛在世的时候，他那时候的另外一个放波国，就是护那齐他出生的地方，就是放波，波就是我们吃饭那个波，放就是放掉那个放弃的放波国，他的有一位他的父亲是一位长者，他是他国家里面最富有的一个长者，他的名字叫做昙摩县。这个他当然他是一个长者，他也有娶了这个太太，然后生了2个儿子，2个儿子都是男的，就是等于后来等于就是护那齐的大哥跟二哥这样子。
护那齐他有3个孩子吗？就2个孩子？
不是，
还没有生出来。
他的父亲，我说他的父亲，他是一个国的长者。对，
我是说护那齐也是个儿子，对不对？他儿子
还没有，护那齐
还没生。
护那齐还没有。等一下我们再讲护那齐他出生的故事。
Okay, so Hunachi, this venerable Hunachi, he was born in a country called Fangbo. Fangbo country, you could say the country of Fangbo, and he had a father who was a respected elder in the country, and was extremely wealthy, one of the wealthiest people in the country. And his father's name was Tanmo Shen. And
Tanmo Shen.
Yeah, Tanmo Shen. And Tanmo Shen had a wife and had 2 boys. 2 boys. And so these 2 boys were, you could say, Hunanchi's older brothers. They're his elder brothers.
他们2个都是太太生的，也都有娶太太，然后也有小孩子，所以这个护那齐他是怎么样子呢？他的母亲是女佣，就是婢女，就是婢女，就是来做来服侍下婢，就是下婢女，就是来当下人的这个他的母亲他母亲来工作，然后那时候他的父亲刚好生病，那因为他很有钱那这个医生请了医生医生来，医生他要探他多赚一点，可能是要给他多一点利益，多赚一点钱就没有很认真的来医他，所以就没有医了蛮久，也没有医好。
So Hunachi, so these 2 boys also had their own wives and also had their own children.
Yeah.
Now Hunachi, his mother was a servant woman. She kind of worked in the home, and but at one point, the the father, the kind of elder, he got sick, and so he was quite wealthy. So they've invited a doctor to come and you could say heal him. But the doctor was a bit greedy, and so because he wanted maybe more money, he actually didn't really kind of diligently heal the father. He kind of helped a little bit, but not really, and so the sickness dragged on and on and on.
所以他就把这个他看到的情况就报告给这个长者，然后他就自动说这样子，你们不用再请这个医生了，我来服侍你，我来跟你拿药啊，这方面这样子来调养他身体。调养一阵以后，真的就好了。
你说他的妈妈那个
Yeah, 那个富纳奇妈妈。
Okay, so the servant woman, who later became Hunachi's mom, she saw this happening and told the elder, who was going to be his father, that this situation is not really working out that well. How about I just kind of make sure we take care of you and make sure all your needs are met, and I can buy your medicine and take care of things. And so they you could say let the doctor go, and then she just took care of him, and by taking care of him, he actually got better.
所以这个病好了以后啊，然后他的这个婢女就是富纳奇的妈妈就跟这个长者讲说这样子我有一个愿，什么愿？就是希望说跟他在一起做夫妻这样子。然后后来这个长者也答应了，所以就跟他做夫妻以后，后来就10个月以后就生下这个富纳奇。富纳奇的意思就是满愿，满这个婢女的愿的意思。Yeah.
So after she helped heal this elder, she asked kind of for one thing, and the father said, "Okay, what is it that you wanted?" Or this elder asked what she wanted. So that we hope to get married with you. So he said, "Okay," and he agreed. And then they had a child, and the child's name was Hunachi. And somebody wrote in our chat box here that the Sanskrit name is Purnicha, which literally means fulfilling one's wishes or fulfilling one's vows, because the elder fulfilled the servant woman's vows.
所以这个富纳奇长得非常端正，而且非常有福德，看了就是很正派。因为其实他的妈妈也是非常有正义的这个妈妈，所以他就做什么事情啊，长大以后做什么事情都是非常顺利，然后也都跟人家做各方面买卖啊，都是非常的诸生方面，就是是料理这些所有事情都是非常的多人员，就都是非常大力、非常大吉大利的。
So this so Hunachi in Sanskrit is Purnecha, so I will use that as the new name. So Purnecha, he when he was born and as he grew up, he was very, you could say, upright, kind of had integrity. He had a kind of a strength about him. People could see him, and he had a kind of inspiring presence. And you could say maybe got it from his mom, who also had a very kind of a mindset that was very proper, who was kind of very upright and had integrity. So as he lived his life went quite smoothly. He would treat people well, and so he was also treated well. When he went to business and had to sell things, he did everything appropriately. He didn't cheat at all. He didn't do anything that was cut corners. He had a lot of integrity. And so he became somebody very respected for his virtue and goodness.
所以在经典上说，他是才艺、智慧啊，都是比人家都好。所以只是一个不好的地方，就是他是逼你所生，就是那个他的下你所生的妈妈。所以他这个长者他也是怕说他走了以后，他以后往生以后会怎么样子，所以他交代家里要不要分家，所以就是要跟2个哥哥一起住，不要分家。
So he was eloquent, wise, virtuous, very respected. However, he had one, you could say, drawback, and which is that he was born from a servant woman. And so his father, this elder, was concerned about him and the family. And so he didn't want, when he passed away, for Purnecha to, you could say, get into a difficult situation. So he told the family that his wishes were that the whole family stay together, that Purnecha and his 2 older brothers would all live in the same household.
后来这个长者就真的死了，那死了以后，他们也没有分家，但是就是由户纳奇来治理家事，大大小小都是他在料理，所以他料理的家里事情有一次就是说家里刚好发生没有钱，就是说现金，好像应该是因为很富有嘛，就是刚好没有这个现金。那小孩子，这个他的二哥的这个小孩子要拿钱，拿不到钱，就跟他妈妈说，他好像有偏心这样子不好。然后他妈妈就你知道女人比较保护小孩子，然后她后来也跟她丈夫，就是她二哥讲，那二哥回来就觉得这个户纳奇不是因为他是下女生的，对他也看不起，所以就非常愤怒，然后甚至于要杀他。
So the elder died, and so Purnecha and his 2 brothers, they didn't split up. They all lived in the same household. Purnecha became responsible for the whole kind of family holdings. He kind of managed things, took care of the finances, took care of the household. And at one point, however, the family didn't have any, you could say, cash on hand. They still had wealth, but they just didn't have any. He didn't have any money, kind of in his whole hands, and so the son of the second brother, his older brother, right? So he's Purnecha, the third.
Argo, yeah.
Argo. So the second brother's son asked for some money from Purnecha, but Purnecha didn't have any to give him because he had no cash on hand. So the second brother's son was angry and told his mom that Purnecha was biased, played favorites, didn't give him any money. And so his mom was very protective of her child. So she went and told her husband, which was Purnecha's older brother, the second brother, saying that, Purnecha is not being fair. He's kind of withholding money from our son. And so the second brother got really angry. And because Purnecha was also the son of the servant woman, he really looked down on him. He didn't really think he was worthy, and so he got so angry that he thought, I'm really going to kill him.
所以就第一个就是他要求要分居，然后他们那
分居就是分开啊，
要分家了，对，要分家，然后这个那也好就他们兄弟就分，但是你知道他只有分2份财产，所以就户纳奇就没有，就是2个兄弟而已，所以就是说要 明明要给夫纳奇，给他要致死他，
致死就是要死掉啊。
也就不给他饭吃就对了。
对。So they so then the second brother then talked with the older brother, and they basically said, okay, we're going to split up the household. So they split up the house into 2 parts to the 2 brothers. Funachi got nothing, and so they were kind of thinking he would just starve to death. Just don't give him anything.
那这个他的这个大哥就是算是那个谢纳，他的名字叫做谢纳。然后他这个就是蛮慈心，就是非常有慈悲心的。然后就怜悯这个富纳奇，然后就将一个地方就空出来给富纳奇住。然后富纳奇呀，他也是蛮尊重这个他们家就是大哥，然后就有一天啊，他跟他的大哥的太太，就是他嫂嘛，就跟他说，我要一些钱啊，我要去买一些柴火，就是木材柴火。
So the older brother, this is not the second brother, but the older brother, his name was Shangna, and he had a bit of kind heart, and so he kind of took Purnicha in. He said, okay, here, I'm gonna have a place for you, and you stay here, and you can take care of you, okay? So although Purnicha didn't really receive anything of the household, you could say the inheritance, the older brother took care of him. And so Purnicha was actually still very respectful to his brothers. And so one day, the older brothers, the first brother, you could say, wife, Purnicha told the first brother's wife, could he have some money? Because he wants to go buy some wood. 是买田木头，对不对？
对，跟他嫂嫂要一些钱。
Want a little bit of money to buy some wood.
Yeah. 所以他嫂嫂说可以啊，那就给他，但是只有5钱，一点点5钱而已。所以他们就富纳奇就拿着这个5钱的钱啊，去街上去买这个柴火。他买到一个5钱，刚好那时候有一束这个柴火5钱，他就跟他买了回家。来，你知道这个5钱的柴火里面啊，是牛头旃檀香，有这个牛头旃檀香在里面。
So the wife only gave Purnicha $5, you could say.
Yeah.
So maybe like $5, so not very much. And so Purnicha went out and he bought some wood. He bought some wood back, and it just so happened the wood that he bought had a special kind of incense.
Yeah.
A very, very special.
旃檀香.
A kind of Chandana, kind of sandalwood, ox head incense. Maybe tell me exactly what Nyoto Zantan Xiang would be in English.
Yeah,
but a special kind of incense was in this wood.
Yeah. 一个旃檀，一个香木啦。
Yeah.
然后他就把它分时段，那个他买了以后回家，刚好那个他的那时候的国王的太太啊，他就生病，生一种热病，然后需要这个牛头旃檀香来涂身来去病去热，所以他就贴出公告说，假如说有这种香的人啊，1两我要给他黄金1000两1000斤的这个黄金1000两的这个买这个旃檀香。
他分成10份，你说？10两。
对，他
分成4个。
时段。
So he took this incense and he broke it into 10 pieces, and it just so happened at that time as well, somebody helped me with the incense, saying it's Gosisa Chandana incense. And so it was very valuable incense. And so what happened was the king's wife, I think you say the queen, became sick. And she needed this special kind of incense, this Goshisa Chandana, to get better. And so the king put out a kind of like a notice, kind of announcement saying, if anybody has just one little bit of this incense, he will give them 1,000 pieces of gold.
OK， 所以这个富纳奇就把他的这个木头拿去给这个国王，然后就跟他拿这个黄金，那总共就有1万两的这个黄金，就卖给10段的项目，这个旃檀木都卖给他，然后就有10万两了，然后他用这个10万两就可以去买这个田园啊，一些家宅车马，奴婢啊，这个甚至于畜生都这样子都具有了，而且还比以前的家里都有超过。
So then Purnecha went to the king and sold him the incense, the 10 pieces of incense. So each piece of incense was 1,000 gold pieces. So he got a total of 10,000 gold pieces. So now with that much money, he could buy many things. He could buy a house, he could buy land, he could buy farming tools, he can buy animals, he can buy people who work for him. He had a huge estate. So his estate was actually even more valuable than the previous, you could say, estate of his 2 brothers.
所以有了钱以后，然后因为他做人很好，所以他又有500个朋友啦，然后一起去大海里面，一起去寻宝，然后他们都跟着一起去，然后他这个大哥哥也都跟他说好啊，你去啊，就是所以他们都去大海里面去寻宝。
So 这个大哥也一起来吗？
没有，大哥没有。
Okay. So Purnecha was a good person, so people liked him, and he had a lot of friends. He had 500 friends, in fact, who they all decided to go into the sea to look for treasure and to kind of search for jewels and things that are special in the sea that are quite valuable. So the older brother, the first brother, heard about this idea about them going off into the sea, and he said, "Okay, no problem. You guys go right ahead."
所以他们就去了以后，就采了很多的这个宝，然后要回来的时候，在中途的时候就他看到，还有所有人也看到，那时候有3个太阳出现，3日线就是3个太阳，所以他们就问一些比较导师们，就说。今天有3个太阳出现，是什么意思？什么何端啊？是什么这样子的情况？那就这个导师就跟他说：“你知道啊，这个3个太阳啊，一个是真正的太阳，第2个就是鱼的眼睛，第3个就是牙齿。而且他们现在要回来的时候。”刚好是在鱼的鱼口，这个船在鱼的鱼口那里，所以看到这个3个太阳，这个是一个最可怕，因为这个出现的话，这个随时就是鱼要把它们吃掉，这个危险。
So they went on their, you could say, treasure hunt into the sea, and they came back with many treasures. They found many treasures, and they were coming back. As they were coming back, they saw in the sky 3 sons. 3 sons. And they thought, wow, this is really weird. How come there's 3 sons? So they asked one of the experienced sailors, who was kind of helping them guide them, say, what's going on? Where are these 3 sons coming from? And this experienced sailor told them, well, this happens when there's a particular situation. He says, one of those sons is the real son. The second one is an eye of a great, sea monster, you could say. And the third is the teeth of the sea monster. So, and if we see the teeth like that, is where our ship is basically right in the mouth of the sea monster. And we're in, you could say, the most dangerous moment. This is like life and death. This is our life's over, We're about to enter the mouth of the sea monster.
所以那时候就有一个贤者，就是说他敬奉佛道，就告诉所有的他们的这些商人啊，就是说赶快心里面念，大家一起念南无佛南无佛这样子，这样子，因为他们知道这个南无佛是三界德大，就是三界里面最大德行的，然后就是遇到危险的时候，他可以来救济，所以他们就赶快就是这样子来念南无佛南无佛，所以这样子的话，就这个摩羯语就是说这个摩语啊，就是听到这个佛名，然后就把嘴巴闭开闭着，然后就走了，就是没有把他们吃掉。
So then, I think Panchaparnecha told the rest of his friends, saying, "Okay, now is such a dangerous time. Let us recite Namo Pho, which means homage to the Buddha, because the Buddha is, you could say, the most powerful, the most venerated of all those in the universe, the 3 realms, the desire realm, the form realm, the formless realm. The Buddha is unsurpassed, and so he can truly help us." And so they recited Namo Pho, Namo Pho, Namo Pho, and the sea monster, hearing the Buddha's name, then closed his mouth and left, and didn't actually swallow the ship and all the people in it.
所以他这样子富纳奇他们就没有就安全的回去他们的家里，然后他把所有的得到的珠宝全部都拿出来给大哥，他的大哥，然后因为他也是跟他说，这些财宝都是祭祖你们祖先7代的祖先呢都用不完，所以这样子他有一个请求，他跟大哥讲说，我要出家，那他这个大哥现那就是说，你那么年纪轻轻的那么早，而且你还没有未达年轮，就是你还没有娶太太，然后要出家，这样子是有一点点不太舍得的，但是最后还是同意。
So Hunachi, with all his friends, safely returned to his home. And there he met his first brother with all these treasures and gave all the treasures to his older brother, saying, "Here's a lot of wealth. This will not only support you, but is enough wealth to support 7 generations, you, your children, and their children, all the way for 7 generations. You can't finish using up all this wealth." And Hunachi, or Purnecha, then told his first brother, "I have a request. I wish to leave home. I wish to become a Shramanera." He wants to go out and cultivate. Now, his older brother thought this was kind of weird. He said, "You're still young. You haven't lived your life yet. You haven't got a wife, you have children, and now you want to leave home? You want to become a cultivator? Okay, well, if that's really what you want to do, I can support you." So his older brother agreed that Hunachi could leave home, Pernecha could leave home.
所以他也同时跟他大哥讲说，因为碰到以前的这个大海，这个摩羯语的这个事情啊，人命是无常的，而且真的是命为垂死啊，所以刚好有碰到这个佛恩啦，来保佑，所以他这一次他要出家。所以请大哥同意，那大哥就同意他们。然后这个当时啊，又有他去出家，然后这个500个这个商人跟他一起去财宝的，也跟着出家。
So the Pernecha told his older brother, saying, "Well, when we were coming back on this trip to get treasures in the ocean, we saw a sea monster, and the sea monster almost ate us all alive. Almost, you guys say we almost lost our lives. So I really realized how impermanent our life is, how fleeting, our life is." And he says it's out of the Buddha's kindness who protected us that we are still alive. So I have a deep sense of gratitude towards the Buddha. So his older brother agreed. Okay, if you want to really leave home, that's fine. He gave his approval. And the friends, these 500 friends who had accompanied Hunachi, Pernecha on this journey, said, okay, if you're going to leave home, we're going to also join you in leaving home. He was quite an influential young man. His 500 friends all follow him.
Yeah. 所以他们就去佛陀那里，佛陀也就准许出家，然后经过很快的，这500个人啊都证果了，但是只有这个护那奇没有证果，他只有证到只有证到出果而已，还没有证果，因为他有一个事情，一个劫还没有通过，就是他要回去放佛果。
So his 500 friends, so they all went to the Buddha, and they became disciples of the Buddha and left home. And the 500 friends, 他们就是变成阿罗汉了，500个
都证果了。
Okay, so these 500 friends all realized arhatship. They all became enlightened. But Pernecha, however, he only realized the first stage of arhatship. He became a stream enterer. There was a reason why he only became the first level is because he still had a kind of a knot, you could say. He still had a kind of an attachment in his heart that of going back to his country.
Yeah, 所以他刚好那个释迦牟尼佛刚好也是碰到就是下安基的日子，所以佛就是准许大家去安基，所以护那期的时候，他就跟佛陀讲，他要回去这个放波国，去安基3个月，然后希望说佛陀来准许他。
So during that time was actually during the summer vasa, which is kind of during the rainy season. That's when in India, the summer times there's a lot of rain, and so the Buddha, in order to not have the monastics out walking around and hurting the animals, the little bugs on the ground, instated this period where the monks stay in one place called the vasa. And so the monks then would stay, in one place for 2-3 months. And so Hunachi, Pernecha, he went to the Buddha now as a monk and asked the Buddha for permission to be able to go back to his home country, the Fangbo, the country of Fangbo, and wanting to go back there to spend the 2 or 3 months vasa period there. So the Buddha agreed, said, okay, you can go back.
然后这个佛陀跟护那基讲啊，他说那个放波国的人啊，那边是非常霸道的，没有什么佛法，所以非常霸道，而且都是信邪教的，所以你去的话，你 去那里，人家可能会骂你的时候你怎么办？然后富那吉说：骂我还好，他没有打我。那佛陀就又讲说：那打你怎么办？他说还好，没有把我打死。那把你打死怎么办？他说就是刚好就是可以来了结这个所有的业障，这些就是刚好。所以那佛陀就是说，那你都不嗔恨吗？他说我一点都不嗔恨。
So the Buddha asked Purnecha and said, okay, so you want to go back to the country of Fangbo, but that country, those the citizens of that country, there's no Buddhists there. They're actually all very uncultured, kind of, you can almost say barbaric. They do things in a way that is very uncultured and unrefined, and so if you go back there, many of them also believe in kind of extreme religions, kind of maybe like cults and strange things. So if you go back there, people most likely will scold you. They'll criticize you. What would you do about that? And so Purnecha said, well, although they would scold me, at least they don't hit me. And so here's the country name is Supara, the country of Supara. So in this country of Supara, although these people might scold me, then at least they didn't hit me. Well, the Buddha goes, okay, how about that then? How about if those people of Supara hit you? So Purnecha says, well, they can hit me, but at least they didn't kill me. The Buddha says, okay, what happens if they kill you? He says, well, I'm just cleaning out my karma. And the Buddha says, really? So you won't have any anger or ill will in your heart? He says, none whatsoever.
经典上是这样子，就是你把我杀的时候，他讲说一切万物啊，有形归于无啊，所以所以这个是很自然的事情，所以就是那最重要就是说不嗔恨，他答应这个佛陀，他一点没有嗔恨心，所以在佛陀讲说哦这样子的话，你有这样子观念的话，那可以，你可以回去了。
So when he talked about not getting killed, the Buddha asked him, "What happens if you get killed?" Purnecha said, "Well, the thousand or the myriad things, they all return back to nothing." So essentially, he's just reflecting on, if they kill me, well, this body will just go back to the earth, right? There's what is there to attach to? So the Buddha was quite impressed, you could say, about Purnecha's response, saying, "Really, you won't have any anger whatsoever, no hostility or ill will whatsoever?" Purnecha says, "No, none whatsoever." So the Buddha says, "Okay, then it sounds like you're ready. You can go back."
所以他就回去放波国的那里，然后就第二天就开始去城里面去托钵。他第一个去大护婆罗门家，这个大护婆罗门一看到这个比丘啊，就怀恨这个恶心啊，就来骂他。然后他这个呼那奇就看到他骂他，就走到别家再去乞食。然后他说那没关系，我明天再来。所以就第二天他就再去的时候，就真的这个婆罗门就打他了。然后他也非常的欢喜，也不什么样子抗辩，所以这样子婆罗门呢就觉得说我这样子残害一个修行人，这样子是，而且他都没有嗔恨心，都没有回骂怎样子，责备我，所以他就觉得这样子是不好，他就跟他忏悔。
So when Purnecha, or say the Bhikshu Purnecha, he's not a monk, Venerable Purnecha went back to his country, Supara. He was going on alms round in the city. Now, the first household he went for alms round in, there was a Brahmin, and this Brahmin saw him and was really angry. He didn't like him at all, and so he scolded Venerable Parnarcha, and then but then Venerable Parnarcha didn't get angry. He just said, okay, so you don't like me, and he went to another house and to go for alms round. But he said, I'll come back next day. So he went back the next day, and this time the Brahmin saw him was still angry. But this time he didn't just wasn't angry and yell at him or scold him. He actually physically hit him. Now, Venerable Parnarcha again didn't get angry. Just because he bore the hit patiently, and the Brahmin saw this happen and thought, well, this is very weird. This is very strange. Right, I hit him and he doesn't get angry. He says, you get angry at us? No, I don't have any anger. And so the Brahmin was deeply impressed by Parnarcha's cultivation and actually very repentant. He felt ashamed of himself for actually treating Venerable Parnarcha the way he did. And so he, in front of Venerable Parnarcha, asked for forgiveness.
所以他这个在那里有这样子的一个修行的这个功夫，然后他还非常的勤奋的休息，然后就后来他就把所有的结就是业障的结都全部都打开了，所以他就后来就证到无漏，就是无漏通，这样子他就证果了。
So Parnarcha then cultivated very vigorously in this country, Supara, and so by doing that, by cultivating this kind of patience and not getting angry at all, bit by bit, he actually untied the knot that he had with the place, these kind of karmic obstructions, and after he untied those knots, he was able to realize arhatship.
所以他这证果以后，他就跟他大哥讲说，他要回去释迦牟尼佛的那个地方，所以他就离开放佛国就回去。然后回去以前跟他的大哥讲，你现在财产都有了，你不要再去大海里面去找什么东西，去拿什么财宝啊。但是他也是有很多朋友，他后来他大哥也就跟着去大海里面去找这个财宝去了。
所以这个就是说他告诉大哥不要去，他大哥还是去。
对。
Okay, so after he became an arhat, he still spoke to his older brother. He talked to his older brother and said, okay, you're well taken care of. And his older brother wanted to go out into the sea to kind of explore and look for treasures. And his older brother had a number of good friends that he wanted to take along with him to the sea. But Venerable Parnarcha says, no, don't do that. It's too dangerous. But his other brother really wanted to go, so he went anyways.
OK， 好，那个他这个大哥去跟着去海里面去拿了说很多的这个牛头旃檀香，满船都是。所以这个时候这个龙啊，他说哇，这个香给人家，这个香木给人家拿走。所以他就要把这个船把它翻掉，所以他这个是龙来作怪，但是那时候发生这个事情，那富那奇刚好在打坐的时候，他就听到这个打坐听到这个谢那在危险之中，他也知道了。然后他就天耳通，他听到富那奇，他说富那奇，赶快来救我， 我这边有灾难，然后呼纳吉听到了，然后他就显神通过去。
So his older brother still went out to look for treasures. When he was going out to look for treasures, he was quite successful, and he found a lot of this special kind of incense that it's called the Gosisa Chandara incense, which was what the first incense that Purnacha discovered when he bought the pieces of wood. And so he's coming back on the ship, but the Dragon King was quite upset that so much of his, you could say, treasures was being taken from the sea. And so he wanted to flip over the boat to kind of destroy the boat, and so keep all the treasures in the dragon's domain. Now, his Punachi's older brother, as they were getting tossed and turned on the ocean, basically he became really scared, and he called out to Hunachi, saying, Hunachi, please help me, please help me. Hunachi at that time was meditating, and be sitting in samadhi, and he heard the cry of his older brother for help.
所以这个呼纳吉他显神通啊，显出什么呢？显出大鹏金翅鸟，然后飞到这个大海，然后这个龙一看到有这个大鹏金翅鸟，赶快就变成就赶快躲在海底下去，所以他这个大哥他们的朋友都平安的就回去家里，所以然后回家以后，他就是要教导他的这个大哥，给他介绍这个佛陀，所以就开始有叫他要烧香啊，所以就是我们要烧香，这个叫他大哥来请佛。
So this venerable Hunachi, he heard the cries of his older brother, so he flew over there to help out, and he transformed himself to a big pung bird. And a pung bird is one that actually eats the dragons. Master Hua describes like they eat the dragons up like noodles, right? They just eat them up. Actually, you can see it happening with the kookaburras. River Hung Sure has kookaburras in Australia, and they actually eat snakes. So snakes are crawling around, the kookaburra flies down and just uses his beak, crouches the snake, and then River Hung Sure describes that he takes the snake and it bangs it on the rock, basically just to kill the snake, and then basically slurps down the snake, and just no teeth to chew, right? Just eats it up. So this pong bird has this ability with the dragons, and so the dragons are really scared of pong birds. So when this dragon saw the pong bird here, he quickly went down to the bottom of the ocean to hide. So because of that, the Hunachi's older brother was able to return safely home, and there Hunachi or Purnacha tried to teach his brother about Buddhism, and so he taught him about incense and making an offering of incense and inviting the presence of the Buddhas.
所以因为他这个大哥没有什么概念啊，对佛法没概念，所以他就跟他说你要请佛啊，你就拿一个香炉，然后去这个高楼上面，就是楼上啊，然后你就跟他请说，第一个你要烧香，就像现在我们Incense一样烧香，然后要归命佛及圣真，然后惟愿明日，就是因为还说要呼那起，就是要来请佛弟子，佛跟弟子们来供养，所以开始教他这个大哥。所以他这个一烧香啊，这个香啊就跑到释迦牟尼佛的顶头上面去，然后成了一个烟盖，然后后面又有一些好像是水一样的这个烟水，然后在佛陀的这个的足的，就是他的脚那里，脚足那里，在那里徘徊。所以这样子的话，这个 佛陀知道哦，这个就是富那奇在他所放出的这个心情，就是他的请求，他知道，所以这个就是一个我们唱香赞，为什么要烧香唱香赞的这个，我们这边依咒，应该佛菩萨他们都可以知道的呀。
So when Venerable Purnecha tried to teach his older brother about how to light incense, he said, okay, you light the incense, you go to a kind of the top of the building, kind of top floor, in a respectful place, and you light the incense, and you sincerely request the presence of the Buddha. You take refuge with the Buddha, and you, along with other Buddhist disciples, are very sincere in requesting his presence. And so this is how Venerable Purnecha tried to teach his older brother the Dharma. Now at that time, when they lit the incense, the incense reached Shakyamuni Buddha. The you could say the smoke created like a kind of like a covering over the Buddha's head. So kind of an incense smoke. And then and then also below where his feet was, the Shakyamuni Buddha's feet became, there's like these kind of, you could say, puddles of incense, these kind of like water underneath. And so the Buddha saw this and knew this was Venerable Purnecha's request. 那个呼那期就是请佛来啊。So just requesting the presence of the Buddha. So this is how we have this incense praise. Similarly, in our ceremonies, we actually light incense and request the presence of the Buddhas.
所以当时的阿难也是觉得哦，这个很奇怪的事情，是谁在放啊？所以佛就告诉是呼那奇，因为他要请我们这个佛弟子过去来供养，所以佛陀就宣布说，阿难，你去宣布所有的这个佛弟子有神通的人，明天就大家显神通过去。后面的这个才精彩，后面的这个他的故事比我们这个只是一半，后面的这个显神通的非常精彩，这个精彩到我们现在做那个 play， 就是街上这个 play 都还比那个都好看。所以他显神通每一个弟子会神通的都去，因为我们今天没有很多时间，都几乎要占掉时间。我们显神通的自己可以去查看，非常精彩。
So Venerable Ananda saw this happening. He saw this incense smoke, saw these kind of almost like water, this kind of incense water next to the Buddha's feet, and said, "What's going on? What is this about?" And the Buddha told Venerable Ananda, this is because Venerable Purnecha is inviting us to go to his place. We can go with all the disciples to visit Venerable Purnecha. And so the Buddha told Venerable Ananda, tell all the disciples that all those who have spiritual abilities will come along and will go visit Venerable Purnecha. And when they were there, they displayed all their spiritual powers. As Jifoshu was talking about, so this is only half of the story. It gets more exciting with them displaying even more spiritual powers, even more exciting than watching shows on the street. But because of time, we won't go into detail with all the amazing feats that these monks did when they visited Venerable Purnecha. 什么鲁香赞是从这里开始的？鲁香赞
应该是relay，就是跟他有关系的。
Okay, so I thought maybe Jinpoche was saying that this incense prayer was actually written by Venerable Purnecha, but no, he's saying that it's related. That by lighting incense, we can invite the presence of the Buddha.
Yeah, okay. 这个算蛮不错，对我们修行，因为讲起来，英雄不怕出身低啊，就是我们要行正道，然后就是我们自己做好，然后就有天助，所以他可以得到其他的财富，所以这个就是我们要 修正道非常重要。
所以说英雄不怕什么？
出生地啊，
出生地、啊。
出生就是你的出生的地方。
地方 OK。所以就是你很低，
也很低贱，不怕的。
So this is a good story to illustrate a principle, which is true heroes are not afraid of being born in lowly places. You're not limited by your birth, where you're born. And so this Venerable Purnecha, he was somebody who lived a very good life. He kind of walked a kind of life of integrity, and because he lived well, he also received the support of the heavens that supported him throughout his life. Yeah, so it's this kind of a Buddhist rags to riches story, you could say. Rags to riches story.
当然，像这个显神通啊，它主要也都是在救济众生、救济亲友，所以这个它这个最重要的目的就是来救度众生，所以神通是这样子的。
So in terms of the spiritual powers, you notice in this story, these powers were used to help people, help relatives, help friends, help those who are in suffering, and so this is an important principle. 好像有些问题。你要不要看一下？路上遇到狗叫我念南无佛。如果它不去走的话，是因为我跟福那
起念佛的诚心还有功力不同的原因吗？
阿弥陀佛。
他说是在路上碰到狗咬的话，
狗咬你啊！
赶快念南无佛，然后假如说狗不走，是不是这个功力不够啊，或者是怎么样子诚心不够？这样子就是说，当然这个我想什么事情都有原因，他假如说狗真的你念，然后他不走的话，诚心是一回事，另外可能跟业障啊，跟这个狗的因缘也有一点关系，就是所有事情都是有因缘的。
So somebody asked a question. So I'm on the road and a dog is coming to bite me. So I recite Nam Mô Pho, homage to the Buddha. If that dog doesn't leave, is it because I'm not as sincere as or I don't have the stability, the kind of capacity of this Venerable Purnecha in his cultivation? What's the reason for this? Is that the reason? So this is Amitofo. And Jing Fosher's response was, well, everything has its causes and conditions. Now, if we recite Nam Mô Pho and we're really sincere, and the dog doesn't go, who is not to say that we also have some karmic affinities with this dog? So you could say these relationships are very complex. It's not kind of just a simple do this and get that. I think a good example is Venerable Purnecha started out and he got scolded by the Brahmins, right? And I'm sure in his heart he had good thoughts, but somehow he has some kind of karmic tie with that Brahmin. 我们也知道看到刚刚那个金佛师讲这个故事，那个胡纳奇去那个波罗门的地方，他也被那个波罗门骂跟打，对不对？ So 我想他心中也可能还是有佛，但是因为他可能还跟那个波罗门有什么缘分啊，不好的缘分，他就在这个环境就可以说掉了，因为他没有再生气。So I think the important point here is actually not to get mad, not to get aggressive. So you don't go, the dog wants to bite you, so then you give the dog a big kick in the head or something, or you take out something to beat the dog with a stick. Then you're just keeping on the cycle of suffering and more suffering. But by reciting the Buddha's name, you're at least keeping a certain internal stability. And then if we have that internal stability, we allow the externals to little bit by little bit work out. 刚刚就说，你念南无佛是不错的，你不要变成你 重要是不要起个嗔恨心，又不高兴就不只是你这个狗要咬你就开始拿个棍子去打它还是踢它这样子，那就是把我们的业障就更深了，就又种了一些不善的因。所以如果我们可以很有耐心，可以接受，我们把我们以前的业障啊，以前的这个问题啊，就可以解了。
Yeah.
那个是 Melinda 请问说，金佛师，请你下个礼拜再讲这个第二部分的故事，你的神通，他们现
神通，那个我们每一个弟子他显神通啊，每一个都不一样的。舍利佛、目犍连，然后大迦叶，哇，那个很精彩的。还有那个他有一些那个沙弥都出现，哇，这个是非常精彩。Yeah.
So every disciple manifested their own spiritual power. Somebody asked Jing Fo to continue the story next week. Jing Fo said, yeah, so the Shariputra manifests his spiritual powers, Mahamoggaliyana, Mahakashyapa, all these great arhats, they showed their spiritual powers, and even some shamis came out and showed their spiritual powers. So it was quite a show, you could say. We have a question. 法师会有盂兰盆节或观音成道法会吗？观音成道日好像在2个星期内。阿弥陀佛。So he's asking about Ulambana and the Guanin's day of realizing the Tao.
Yeah, 我们明天开会会跟石法师还有我们的一些佛友们，就是比丘们会开会。我想会的，我们要做，上一次有提过了，我们要做那个乌罗巴嘛，就是一分节，一分节。还有我们也会，我们想说在这个暑假还是暑假期间，我们可能会做一个佛期，7天的法会。Yeah.
So we'll have our Berkeley Buddhist Monastery meeting tomorrow, and so what we're hoping to do is discuss our upcoming Dharma assemblies. So for instance, we'll have Ulambana at the monastery at BBM. We'll also have other Dharma assemblies. Jing Fosher is very vigorous, and he says he wants to do a 7-day Amitabha session, 7 full days. We'll see if we can pull that off. So.
对，明天我们要提出来才这个，我们只是先透露，还没有最后确定哦。Yeah.
So we don't know yet, so we'll let people know about the dates and times. So we'll have to discuss as a sangha. And another person also asked for the story. Jing Fosher set them up. Now they want to hear the full story. 看大家还要学这个，请你讲另外一个故事，下个礼拜。下礼拜讲故事。是金佛是 OK。真好佛迹，阿弥陀佛。有八关斋戒吗？
有八关斋戒，还有要写牌位都有，都跟以前一样的。Yeah. 有八关斋戒写牌位。Yeah.
有人问说，法师有没有不同？就是我们念佛为众生，然后或者我们先念佛，然后最后回向给众生，这是有不同吗？
我想发心最重要，你有发菩提心，你做什么事情都是一样的。你前后这个，我想应该是看你的一开始你自己可以发愿嘛，可以发愿，然后你念佛可以说给所有的众生离苦得乐。然后最后你再回向，这样子就可以了，就圆满了。
Somebody asked about, is there a difference between reciting the Buddha's name on behalf of other people, and then the other option is transferring the merit at the end? Is there a difference? Jing Fosher says, well, what's important is that you make the Bodhi resolve. Then it's all the same. You want to make vows that we are going to help all living beings, and then after we practice, we can also transfer merit to them. So you do both. When you recite, you're not just reciting for yourself, you're reciting on behalf of all living beings. And then after the end, you can then intentionally also send out goodness through the dedication of merit. That's just a kind of way of you could say reinforcing our intention. Yeah.
有人问说上次参加八关斋戒这次还可以参加吗？当然是可以呀。八关斋戒就是说，你看你那时候你发愿是你要受几天的，1天、2天，或者是8天，或者1个月，随便你。当然是可以再受的，没有问题。
So somebody asked, can I take the 8 precepts again? Last time I took it already. Can I take it one more time? King Forster says, yes, for sure. It's up to you. When you take the 8 precepts, you can take it for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 8 days, 1 month. It's up to you how long you want to take it for. But you can take it again when we transmit it. However, I would say if you don't try to be too vigorous, because if you're a layperson, you're living at home, you want to take it to be appropriate to your conditions. The reason we transmit it for our Dharma assembly is that people can take the 8 precepts for the period of the Dharma assembly. For instance, let's say we have a 3-day Amitabha session. You can take it for those 3 days. And those 3 days, it creates you could say a sacred space within your own heart. So you're not going to go out and look at entertainments, get really in comfortable situations. I'm going to regulate my senses to kind of not have so much distraction. And then we can really cultivate. And so that's kind of the point. So 我刚刚说八关斋戒不是更多天就是更好。我们很多时候八关斋戒的原因是什么呢？是因为我们要来支持我们的修行。我们支持修行怎么样呢？就是我们像那个佛山的时候，我们这个3天我们想尽量很专心的念佛。但我们说八关斋戒3天，但这3天我们就好像保护自己一样。让我们可以专心的修行，不会分心去做别的事情。但是如果你有真正的因缘，可以受1个月啊，或更久啊，但 OK 也可以，但是不要勉强，因为看大家可能还有很多工作在社会上啊，可能是居士啊，我们要怎么说，适应自己的真正的生活。Will we be able to receive the precepts essence through online? 可不可以那个法体，就是那种戒体，我们用网上可以受戒体吗？
当然是可以。我想是可以，就是看你的心嘛，因为我们的心是精细公片法界的，看你诚心，看你的心是可以。
Yeah, King Forster says yes, you can. It's up to you, up to your mind, up to your heart. If our hearts are expansive, it's you could permeate throughout the Dharma realm everywhere. So if we can open our hearts and be sincere, then we can connect to the precepts upstairs.
Okay. 他说上一次参加八关戒1天没玩手机。
没玩手机什么意思？
没有玩手机了，就是没有看手机了。
没看手机啊 Very good. He says, I take the 8 precepts.
感觉超清净的。
I didn't play with my cell phone, and I felt very at peace. Very good. Yeah, we don't play with our cell phones, and we will find that somehow our mind is just more calm. There's actually a lot of studies about how the cell phone now creates a lot of anxiety. You just have it there, and then it rings, ding. And even if you don't look at it, in that just ding, your body kind of reacts like, oh, I gotta pay attention. And they design it now to be very addictive. The technology isn't neutral. You have to understand, billions and billions of dollars are being spent on having us be addicted to whatever device it is, because that's how they make their money, right? And so they need to make their devices as addictive as possible. So if we can take the precept and say, you know what, I'm going to reduce and not engage my cell phone and things that would distract me, maybe only use it for essential items, great. That's one of the best ways to develop some peacefulness in the heart. Is there an indication of the precepts received because last time I felt at peace and light? Is that it? I have my own reflections on the precept essence, and I've heard different stories about the precept essence. I can share one reflection is that if you notice in the ritual, if you have the 8 precept ritual that we shared last time, when do you actually receive the precept essence? If you take a look, and I was surprised that you could say, maybe another way is you activate the precept essence when you take the 3 refuges. To me, that was very interesting because I thought the precept essence would be actually at the time you take the 8 precepts, right? Say, will you not kill? Will you not steal? And say, yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. And say, oh, that's the precept essence. But actually, it's at the place of the 3 refuges. And when we took the precepts for becoming a monk, they gave us a contemplation that each time you take refuge, you actually imagine all the good dharmas, all the goodness throughout the world comes into our body. It's kind of like a reflection. But to me, as I reflect on it, is to say this precept essence isn't some kind of mystical, otherworldly thing that we kind of get. Oh, I got it. No, phew, I got it. It's something we already have. It's our inner goodness, our kind of virtuous internal integrity that we're tapping into. So that's what I was thinking when the 3 refuges is, that's when we are committing to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, saying, I'm going to live a life devoted to awakening, to studying the Dharma, the methods to get out, and living in harmony, cultivating with good friends on this path. And so by making that commitment, we activate this inner wisdom and goodness that we have inside. And then the 8 precept marks, the not killing, not stealing, not going for distractions and entertainment, that protects that essence from leaking out. We have, if you look at the 6 Patriarch Sutra and many of the Mahayana Sutras, they talk about how we're complete already. There's nothing to attain. We lack nothing. But we get confused, right? We get low self-esteem, we have self-doubt, we have a lot of distractions, and we think we need to go outside for happiness, go outside for satisfaction. And we leak out all our energy, bit by bit by bit. And so in cultivation, what we're doing is we're closing those leakages and developing that inner light, that inner goodness. So that's one way I've kind of, at least for myself, understood this precept essence. I've heard another story about the precept masters talking about precept essence and saying how when somebody really receives the precept essence, then if they were going to break the precept, say they're going to eat past noon and they've taken this precept, then somehow something stops them inside, or something even external stops them, and they don't actually break the precept. And so, well, that's because the precept substance kind of protects you. And to me, another way of looking at it, because I have to say I'm probably more psychological as my internal orientation, although I do believe there's other realms happening as well, other realms of causality. That again, this is because we activated something deep inside ourselves, a deep sense of goodness and integrity. So when we're going to break that commitment to what we say we're going to do, that inner resolve comes forth and says, actually, no, you don't want to do that. You want to stay true to your vows. And we stick to our precepts. So yeah, and what you'll find is exactly that. When we start holding those precepts and we come from that place of inner goodness, there's peace and there's light. There's a deep inner happiness that we discover. It's funny. It's really funny because the world tells us differently. The world tells us happiness comes from buying this new thing or getting ahead, competing and beating everyone else and being number one. That's going to really get you happiness. And we think we just take a look out in the world. That just ends up with more suffering, oftentimes even violence and hatred and jealousy. It's like, just can put that all down. And if we can just learn to be content with what we have, live a good life, we have a life free of regrets, and a life that's really worth living, worth remembering. So that's, what's the benefit of holding the precepts? 刚刚讲太多英文了，我想重点就是说，我们受戒，就是把我们里面的心的这个善念啊、智慧啊，就发出来。不是真正我们从外面拿到什么东西，是我们心里的这个心中的，可以说，正念啊跟道德啊就现出来了。所以我们这个八戒呢，就是保护我们，不要把我们这个真正的这个善心啊，这个好的东西啊露出来，我们不要把我们都漏掉了。好，我们今天可能就讲到在这里吗？还有什么问题吗？
对，这个刚才说上一次已经参加了八关斋戒，这一次还要参加吗？就是看你自己，那上一次你发的戒是几天，时间是多少？假如说这1天2天，你当然你可以这一次可以参加。假如说1年，那你就不用参加。但是你自己要守好就好了。好，另外一个就是说，把他是不吃五辛的，然后炒菜的时候可以吗？当然不可以，炒菜也是你做调味是不可以的。
So the questions are on the 8 precepts. So one says, I've taken the 8 precepts last time. Should I take it again? Say, you're welcome to. It's up to you, your choice. If you took, say, the 8 precepts just for a day last time, then yeah, take it again. If you took it for, let's say, a year, then then you're already holding 8 precepts. You wouldn't need to come back and take it again. But as I mentioned, I would recommend if you're a lay person and living at home and you have family, if you decide to take 8 precepts for 1 year, make sure the rest of your family's environment can support that. Don't force it. And the second question is around, if I don't eat the 5 pungent plants, onion, garlic, so forth, can I still use them as kind of flavoring? And Jing Forger says, no, actually you don't use it even for flavoring.
当然我们出家人是不用五辛来做调味的
Yeah, we don't use the 5 pungent plants for flavors. Okay. Yeah, you could renew your vows if you want to come for the ceremony. It's good. It's a good ceremony to kind of recommit. Yeah. For sure. Okay. The Dharma ceremonies help us clarify our intentions and make them stronger.
好
Okay, 我们回向功德了。好 So we have the dedication of merit in the chat box. And we can put our palms together, and like somebody a moment ago said about transferring merit at the end or transferring merit as we do it, we can do both. They're not mutually exclusive. Okay. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hand and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. 3 bows to the Buddha. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Okay, so happy everyone
Okay.
could join us for our Sutra lecture tonight. I see somebody's comment was the volume low. Hopefully it was okay. People can maybe comment if their sound is not loud enough. But we're
是吗？是吗？
好像应该 okay. So yeah, we'll see everyone next week. Same, you're saying same Dharma time, same Dharma channel. But I will actually be at Sudana Center next week because I'll be going up tomorrow to help take care of some of the students at the RBU. So I'll be joining the lecture from another place, but I'll still be helping out the translation. Okay, so
好，
Amitofo.
阿弥陀佛。
Yep.